Douglas Adams authored 7 humorous sci-fi novels, while Terry Pratchett had over 40 entries in his Fantasy Discworld series alone. Nestled between these two giants, with over 30 humorous sci-fi and fantasy novels to his name, is the criminally underrated Tom Holt, whose writing career began in 1987 with the publication of his first novel, Expecting Someone Taller. Much like how Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency based much of its story and structure on the poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Tom Holt's Expecting Someone Taller is set in the world of Richard Wagner's The Ring of the Nibelung, commonly referred to as the Ring Cycle, a series of 4 linked operas based on the Norse sagas. Those who have never heard of the Ring Cycle are still likely to be familiar with much of the music, as it has been used in many films. The cartoon short, What's Opera Doc, was directly inspired by the Ring Cycle, in which Elmer plays the armored hunter Siegfried, while Bugs, once again in drag, plays the Valkyrie Brunhilde. Fans of J.R.R. Tolkien may also see some familiar things in Wagner's work if they're paying attention. The Ring Cycle is set within the Norse cosmology, in which Wotan, the king of the gods, conspires with the fire god Loge to steal a powerful magic ring that allows its wearer to rule the world. The ring is in the possession of Alberich, a member of the Nibelung race, who in Wagner's world are dwarves skilled in mining and crafting. He had created the ring from gold he'd stolen from a trio of beautiful river spirits called the Rhine Daughters after they rejected his romantic overtures. Wotan needed the ring to pay off 2 frost giant brothers for building his castle Valhalla. The gods successfully steal the ring, a massive amount of gold, and the Tarnhelm, a magic helmet that grants the powers of shapeshifting and invisibility. They give all these to the frost giants, who immediately quarrel over them. One brother murders the other and uses the Tarnhelm to turn into a dragon to defend his horde. Later, Wotan, already the father of the Valkyries, 9 spirits entirely beholden to his will, sires 2 additional mortal children, a son and daughter, in a complicated plot to regain the ring. These children eventually commit incest and produce a child, Siegfried. Siegfried later falls in love with Brunhilde, a Valkyrie, and his aunt, who had been punished by Wotan by being turned mortal. After killing the dragon and taking the ring, Siegfried gives it to Brunhilde as a token of his love. Soon after, Siegfried is tricked into betraying Brunhilde by Alberich's son, Hagen. Brunhilde gets revenge on Siegfried by getting him killed before she commits suicide by jumping into a burning pyre. Hagen tries to claim the ring for himself, but is instead drowned by the Rhine Daughters, while Valhalla catches fire and the opera comes to an end. Expecting Someone Taller begins almost 1,000 years later, when a short and wimpy young auction clerk, Malcolm Fisher, runs over a badger with his car on a rural country road in the south of England. The badger is in reality Ingolf, the forgotten 3rd frost giant brother who was able to steal the ring and Tarnhelm while the Rhine Daughters were distracted drowning Hagen. Surprised by the fact that a badger can speak, and irritated as that badger repeatedly insults him for being short, Ingolf had been expecting someone taller. Malcolm is further amazed when the Tarnhelm is removed and the badger turns into a huge man. Ingolf wills the ring to Malcolm, as well as the Tarnhelm and a taste of his enchanted blood, which grants Malcolm the ability to understand birds, hear radio waves, and read other people's minds. Ingolf explains how these gifts work, including how to use the ring to summon gold, and an additional power the Tarnhelm of Wagner had left out, teleportation, before dying and leaving Malcolm as the new ruler of the world. Malcolm spends some time getting accustomed to his new powers by conjuring gold, teleporting across the globe, and shapeshifting himself into several famous historical and fictional characters, including, just for the hell of it, the most handsome man and the most beautiful woman who had ever lived, not finding out until later that they were Siegfried and Brunhilde respectively. He also spends an afternoon at the library learning about the history of the ring by reading a synopsis of the ring cycle. This also cleverly brings any readers unfamiliar with the opera up to speed. Aided by the advice of a very helpful pigeon, Malcolm discovers that the ring only allows one to rule the world subconsciously, based on the ring bearer's mood and not by any direct force of will. For example, Ingolf had been hiding from the gods for centuries as a flea-bitten and irritable badger, so his foul mood resulted in mankind suffering from war and other maladies. In order to protect the world by staying as cheerful as possible, Malcolm chooses to live in comfortable solitude, free from anyone who might upset him. Using gold conjured by the ring and under the false identity of a wealthy German, he purchases a large nearby English estate he'd always fancied. Malcolm accidentally starts his new life using the outer appearance of Siegfried after panicking and having the Tarnhelm make him the most handsome man who ever lived. Meanwhile, Wotan becomes aware of the ring's change in ownership and immediately tries, and fails, to steal it back. Aware that the ring makes the wearer too strong for a direct assault, even by the gods, Wotan settles on the same plan that mostly worked before, having one of his Valkyrie daughters seduce Malcolm. Complicating matters, the three Rhine daughters still want their gold back. Each tries in turn to seduce Malcolm, and each fails because, unlike Siegfried, Malcolm suffers low self-esteem and is bad with women after having spent most of his life in the shadow of a bullying older sister. One of the Rhine daughters, Flosshilde, finds to her surprise that she quite likes Malcolm and appears set to become his main love interest. Before this can happen, Wotan commences Operation Valkyrie and achieves some measure of success when his daughter, Orlinde, becomes the object of the ring bearer's affection. A large part of Malcolm's love is due to not knowing she is a supernatural being, thinking that the Valkyrie is a normal human who fell in love with him. Smitten, he decides to give Orlinde the ring as a token of his love, just as Siegfried once did for Brunhilde, but a doomed sparrow identifies her as Wotan's daughter at the last second. Malcolm keeps the ring, but falls into abject misery trying to come to grips with his feelings. Having failed her father, Orlinde returns to Valhalla. Wotan, filled with rage, gathers his entire divine army to attack Malcolm and take back the ring once and for all. Other characters from the opera appear in minor roles. Albrecht the Dwarf, the creator and original owner of the ring, Loge, the fire god, Wotan's main lieutenant, Erda, also known as Mother Earth, Wotan's ex-mistress and mother of all the Valkyries, and Wotan's ravens, Thought and Memory, the gods' spies and messengers. Though all supernatural in origin, each is charmingly filled with very human foibles. Albrecht is haughty and suffers constant indigestion due to being a sulfur-based life form. Loge has long suffered under Wotan's horrible management style and lives in constant fear of his boss turning him into a pond, as he is terrified of fish. Mother Earth is officious and thinks a bit too highly of English customs. Wotan's ravens are essentially underappreciated and overworked low-level office drones who long to retire far away from abusive upper management. The tone of Expecting Someone Taller is cheerful and features very little actual conflict. Any tension that does arise is quick to appear and even quicker to get resolved, whether it's Wotan's first attempt to steal the ring or the final conflict as the King of the Gods mounts a full-on heavenly assault on the south of England. Each is introduced and resolved in just a few pages. This is a minor quibble, as the enjoyment of Holt's writing isn't the story, but rather the interaction of the characters. They are all simply a joy to experience, with one surprising exception. As the main protagonist, Malcolm is nice enough, but often comes across as the least sympathetic of anyone in the book, particularly how he treats many of those around him, even those who are only looking out for his best interests. He childishly uses the Tarnhelm to publicly humiliate a man for no greater crime than being engaged to a girl Malcolm once had a crush on. He physically assaults and threatens Albrecht and ignores the dwarf's sincere counsel and advice. He's disrespectful to Mother Earth and calls her names under his breath. After falling in love with Orlinde, Malcolm completely disregards Flosshilde's obvious feelings for him, only later to accept him after the Valkyrie disappears from existence and his thoughts. Malcolm even deals brutally with the poor young sparrow who warns him about Orlinde. An extremely depressing and disturbing moment in an otherwise lighthearted book. A running theme of Expecting Someone Taller is that the gods and heroes are flawed, so perhaps it is only fitting that Malcolm himself is so maladjusted. As a primary antagonist, Wotan is less a mad god bent on world conquest and more a disgruntled CEO and beleaguered single father stuck in a large house with 8 neurotic daughters who henpeck him to death. Readers are never actually given any first-hand moment of true maliciousness from Wotan, while his worst traits are mentioned in passing by secondary characters. During the course of Expecting Someone Taller, he never does anything more than plot with Loge to steal back the ring. Granted, during the climax he does lead an armed invasion against England causing catastrophic destruction, but even that is played for laughs and has no lingering ill effects. The secondary antagonists, Albric and the Rhine daughters, are also sympathetic. The dwarf admits the world as ruled by Malcolm seems to be doing rather well, while 2 of the 3 river spirits only half-heartedly try to get the ring back, with the third actually falling in love with Malcolm. I first saw Expecting Someone Taller in the early 1990s, sitting on a grocery store shelf in Texas among cheap romance novels and Stephen King books. It caught my eye due to the cover blurb which said, "Recalls both Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and Twain's Connecticut Yankee." While not a huge fan of Mark Twain, I was an avid Tolkien reader, and in those days, a decade before Peter Jackson made Sam and Frodo a worldwide phenomenon, seeing Tolkien's name outside a library in the wild was rare. I picked up this paperback I'd never heard of before, by an author I'd never heard of before, read it, loved it, and I hope you do the same.